Welcome into Cleveland Browns Daily. Nathan Zegura, the voice of the Browns. Jim Donovan out at the Cross Country Mortgage campus getting ready for the Browns to take the field, their second consecutive day of practices. But I think today, Jim, going to be more of the calm before the storm.
Yes.
The storm, of course, being the joint practices with the Giants Thursday and Friday. Today, the last day of training camp, open to our great fans, the best in all of professional sports. But yesterday's practice, a little more spirit than I think perhaps we thought. A good 7-on-7, and they're working on some hurry-up type of stuff. But I think today will be a little bit kind of, let's get everybody in the right frame of mind. Let's walk through some things and get ready to really hit the ground running tomorrow.
Yeah, because the Giants are on their way. I was really interested, Nathan, going back to yesterday, and I got a chance last night to listen to it a little bit more in depth, but Kevin Stefanski's meeting with the media yesterday and his description of the trust factor between Joe Judge and himself, and thus the Giants and the Browns organizations, to have this joint practice, to have these two joint practices, and to make them safe.
Yeah, and that's the key. Joining us now on the hotline, we have Tom Pelissero, who covers the NFL and does one of the best insiders for the NFL Network. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Pelissero. Tom, thanks for being with us, and welcome to the Cross Country Mortgage campus.
I'm very close to the campus, currently wondering if we're about to get a rainstorm out here, if I need to go get the parka and the umbrella, or if I'm going to be okay. The weather app says we should be all right. I'm looking forward to seeing the Browns this afternoon.
When you come in knowing all the moves that have happened this offseason, what this team accomplished under Kevin Stefanski, what's the one thing that you most want to see or that you're most interested in seeing here in your time at the Cross Country Mortgage campus?
Well, I think that really, in terms of what I'm actually looking to see today, it's just kind of some of those new pieces. Obviously, they continue to add on the defensive side of the ball, signing John Johnson, who, based in part on him having a very anonymous name, is a pretty anonymous player for how good he is and has been for a while out there with the Rams. Obviously, they bring in Greg Newsome with their first-round draft pick. They bring in Jadeveon Clowney, who's been, missing a little bit of time of late. But, they've continued to add, and I think that that's not a surprise. No one – the aggressive type of mindset that Andrew Berry has. He's not going to make decisions in a vacuum. I mean, he's always going to be very deliberate and well thought out in the things he wants to do, but also not going to stand pat just because they had a good season. I think in the macro, the interesting thing with the Browns this year is how do they handle expectations? Because you can look through the years at the number of times, particularly when they've drafted a first-round quarterback, and the hype when Johnny Manziel was coming in, the hype when Baker was coming in his first year, go down the list, but never coming off a season, in many years like the one that they had last season. And I think that, it's wild to me to turn on Good Morning Football or some of our other programs and see them, debating like, is it Super Bowl or bust for the Cleveland Browns? I mean, you feel like you're in a bit of a parallel universe, but that speaks to the job that Kevin Stefanski and his staff did last season with all the COVID challenges. They've obviously got a good nucleus. They got a ton out of those running backs last season. The defense performed when it needed to at a pretty high level. Everything's lined up outside of the fact that there's still a guy named Patrick Mahomes who plays in that conference for them to be among the favorites here. And, what do you know? You got that guy sitting there September 12th in Kansas City.
Hey, Tom, when you take a look at how they did it, and you're right about expectations, and when they got OBJ, there were unbelievable expectations, and certainly they did not meet them. They crashed to a 6-win season. But when you take a look at how they finally have put this thing together, it's meticulously been done, hasn't it? I mean, they went and they got the offense put together last year. They realized that they had to fix the defense, and then it was an offseason this past year where it was all defense. I mean, it really has been done systematically, patiently, but very effectively, hasn't it?
Well, right, and this really all goes back about 5-6 years when they began the roster teardown and amassing the resources and all those draft picks. There were certainly some picks in those days that were missed, but you continue to have a trickle-down effect in terms of how they were set up from a salary cap perspective, how they were set up from a draft capital perspective. They had a lot of flexibility. And again, when you have an aggressive GM like Andrew Berry in terms of evaluating every opportunity in terms of trades, in terms of free agency, in terms of the draft, you're going to put yourself in position, to make a lot of moves, but they've got to be the right moves. And I think that's what really jumps out with what the Browns have done here is they have hit on some of their high leverage types of things You mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, think about this. And granted, they're paying him about $15 million this season. But if all of a sudden Odell comes back to a team that was as good as the Browns were a year ago without him, this is like a freebie. This is like a bonus player, a guy who you go back a couple of years and he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL. I don't know that anybody in recent NFL history has had a first 3 years like Odell Beckham Jr. did, just in terms of the pure productivity, the yards, the touchdown numbers that he put up. There have been a lot of injuries since. He's not as young as he was. He's still a pretty young guy at a position where we've seen guys be productive into their late 20s and early 30s. I think that a lot of the stuff that we talked about with Odell with the Giants was, the emotional aspects of it and how he handled himself. And, all the reviews that I've heard from Cleveland over the past couple of years have been positive. He's just, he had a very unfortunate injury early last season that took him out, but he's been in fantastic shape through the course of the offseason. Was running this summer better at, 95% or whatever he was than a lot of guys are at 100%. I know they're continuing to proceed cautiously with him, but again, if you put a guy in who's been one of the best at his profession, he's even close to the Odell Beckham Jr. that we saw in 2014, 15, 16. That's an amazing weapon to add without really giving up anything other than his salary this season.
Yeah, and he is a guy that we're excited to see ramp up, actually participate a little bit on air only, but in some team drills yesterday, and hopefully we'll see perhaps him against the Giants in these joint practices. What jumped out to you, if anything, if you're able to catch some or all of the Browns' preseason opening win over the Jacksonville Jaguars? And I know that the starters didn't play, but some of the young guys you mentioned, Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Demetric Felton, did play. What did you think of what the Browns were able to do there?
To be quite honest, I did see a decent chunk of that game, but I was primarily watching Trevor Lawrence throughout it. I wasn't focused as much on how the new look Cleveland defensive front was going to be. But, again, I just go back to, the additions that they've made, the fact they get an Owusu-Koramoah in the second round, where when I actually looked back at a text message I sent someone the day before the draft as I was going through text yesterday, predicting based on the people I talked to in the league that Owusu-Koramoah was going to be the Browns' first-round pick. For them to come back and get him in the second, once again, it's them, getting value. That's really what it's all about. A really productive player. He's obviously a little bit smaller for his position. There were some concerns there, but, to have that guy, and I know there was some medical thing as well that had popped up late in the process, but that the Browns were comfortable with. Absolutely. You're talking about a first-round talent on top of the corner that they got. So really you feel like you got 2 first-round picks in this group, and now it's just a matter of, putting all these pieces together. I mean, again, another freebie type of guy, Grant Delpit. I know he hasn't done much out here in camp, but we looked at him last year thinking this guy could be a starting safety as a rookie, then gets hurt, misses the season. Again, another guy coming back who you didn't use any assets this year on, but if he comes back and performs something close to what you thought he would be, again, pending whatever he's able to do here through the rest of camp in the preseason, that's another potential upgrade. It's almost as if you've used even more draft picks on that side of the ball than you actually did.
Tom, you mentioned Patrick Mahomes. We'll see him on opening day, so we'll deal with that, and that's going to be a handful. But let's go to first things first. How do you see this division that the Browns are in playing out?
We had this discussion last month when I was filling in hosting on Good Morning Football, and, it kind of clicked into my head that, like, if you had to look at the entire NFL right now and say what division would you take any matchup, in other words, spin the wheel, pick any 2 teams from the division, playing each other, and you would absolutely watch that game. The 2 divisions that I would do that with are probably the NFC West and the AFC North.
Yeah.
Just because I think the AFC North is so compelling from top to bottom. You've got a former MVP in Lamar Jackson on a Ravens team that absolutely believes that they should be in a position to go win a Super Bowl, to make a deep playoff run after getting the playoff win last year. You have the Steelers, who everybody forgets started 11-0 last season before Bud Dupree got hurt. Obviously, Ben Roethlisberger's got a lot to prove. This could be his final run at it, but they've got some weapons on offense, got to figure out their offensive line. We know they're going to be good on defense. That should be another team that intends to be contending. I went to Cincinnati a week and a half or so ago and saw the Bengals. It was actually a good day for the Bengals defense. We talked so much about Joe Burrow and, getting Jamar Chase in there now, along with the other weapons that they have offensively. Defensively, they're going to be way better, at least personnel-wise, than they have been in the past. And we know they're always going to play, hard and fast and disciplined for Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinator. But all of a sudden now, guys who missed time last year, Trey Waynes, who missed the entire season, DJ Reader, another big-ticket free agent item, he got hurt early in the season. They've invested a lot of resources on the defensive side of the ball, too. That team should be improved. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? I don't know. I mean, another team that's, had a down 5 years or so here, but they certainly think that they can be a lot better, and they're under different expectations than it's been in the past. And then that, brings us to the Browns. I mean, top to bottom, I hesitate to stack anything up on October or August 18th here. But certainly I think this is one of the few divisions that you really look at and say, depending how things shake out here, you could see all four of these teams being in the playoffs come January.
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
Yes.
Would be, wow.
That would be something. Tom, appreciate the time very much. We know you got to get going on NFL Network. Again, follow him on Twitter at Tom Pelissero. Thanks so much for the time, and looking forward to seeing your coverage of this team and, of course, this great league all year long.
You got it, Gus.
All right, Tom Pelissero, our guest there. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear a former NFL executive, former member of the Browns, Scott Pioli, had some very interesting things to say about Jim's favorite guy, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. That's coming up next on Cleveland Browns Daily. If your Social Security benefits have been denied, call the disability lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk and Elk, proud partner of the Cleveland Browns. Nathan Zegura, Jim Donovan here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus, getting ready for the Browns to take the field in just about an hour and 10 minutes or so. We teased a little something about JOK from Scott Pioli on NFL Network, but before we get that, Jim, I know that you're allowed to have two favorites. JOK on defense, Nick Chubb on offense, and I come bearing gifts today.
All right.
I happen to be at my local Heinen's. Yesterday, I was making a pasta fajoule for the family, which was a real treat. And as I was checking out, I couldn't help but notice some Chubb Crunch. The Chubb Crunch cereal made exclusively at Heinen's. It's got a cinnamon toast square, so a cinnamon toast crunch vibe to it. And it's very interesting. So it talks about Chubbtown, Georgia, historic town established in 1864, founded by Nick's ancestors. This Georgia town became self-sufficient as a result of several family-owned businesses and farms coming together during the Civil War. And Browns fans, if you don't know about this, Google Chubbtown. It's actually a fascinating thing. And in memory of Junior Stocks Chubb, and the proceeds benefit First Candle, which is committed to ending SIDS and other sleep-related infant deaths while providing bereavement support to families who have experienced a loss. And you've got some cool Batman art on the cover, a little logo for the Chubb Crunch that looks a lot like Batman. But I knew that you would want this.
Goodness,
you couldn't have Chubba Wubba Hub Crunch, so they just went with Chubb Crunch to keep it short for the people, Jim.
His dad was here yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Chubb's dad was here yesterday watching practice. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I hope I get you in the Christmas grab. I'll be able to give back to this.
What a I mean, just a treat. So I guess it's exclusively at Heinen's throughout the area.
And there's a website you can go on too, I think.
And get it.
Yeah, and you can get it. What I was saying before we visited with Tom though was about I was very impressed with Kevin Stefanski, ever the gentleman,
yes,
ever the statesman. How he said it's the trust factor between the Giant organization and the Browns will keep things in check here Thursday and Friday when the two teams are on the practice field, and that they're our guests. We respect them. They respect us. We're going to make sure it's safe. And then I turned on Hard Knocks last night, and I'm watching the Cowboys and Rams, and man, I have to tell you, there were periods of absolute bedlam and chaos when the two teams were practicing. I would say this. I think it's the coaching staffs of both teams would have to really be on mark and on alert to make sure that that what Kevin painted yesterday happens Thursday and Friday.
Well, listen, the Giants have already fought themselves. They've already had a fracas amongst themselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're coming into this, obviously.
They make the Rams and Cowboys look like just a bad verb fight.
That's right. So we're going to have one eye open. But you're right. I think it very much is on the coaches because these things do get testy. In Buffalo, they got so testy as the Bills were unfortunately dominating us. Gibbs was a victim of trash talk from the Bills players, as we've talked about before. In Indianapolis, fracas.
Right.
There, tensions ran high. So it is going to be something. Listen, we know Jabril. We loved Jabril when he was here, but Jabril was the biggest trash talker in practice as a member of the Browns, and I can only imagine it's going to be amped up as a member of the Giants in this return. So I think everybody's got to understand what the goals are and really be on top of it. And if something, kind of like we were talking with the hamstrings, where they can see if we are in the potential to have an injury, we're going to back up. If we have the potential, we're going to have to back up because it's going to be intense.
Yeah. Nathan, it was really great yesterday to see those players that have had those hamstring issues, those soft tissue, get back out on the field. And it translates into the player's mood. So just one in particular, the biggest one, and that's Grant Delpit. He got back out on the field yesterday. He was active in practice. He got a little bit more active as the practice went along. Today he met with the media, and he just looked different.
Looked happy.
He looked happy. He looked like he was playing football again, and he was yesterday. And you just look at him. And Tom touched on this a few moments ago when he was talking with us. I mean, that's like a freebie because we didn't have him at all last year. And now we have him hopefully this year, but hopefully for the player. But it was great seeing Mack Wilson out there. It was great seeing Anthony Schwartz at least dressed to be out there. And the other players that are starting to trickle back in, just like the coach said, after the Jacksonville game, that we were going to get healthier. You just had to be patient. So that was good.
It was great. And Delpit, when you look at him, he's in tremendous condition. The guy's he's an absolute specimen. And he's somebody that I think we're counting on. He's a freebie. Greedy's a freebie. Billings is a freebie. These are guys who, for injury or opting out, weren't available, that you didn't have to spend any assets whatsoever on, and now you get them on your team this year. All right, we teased earlier, we talked Chubb, but your other favorite, obviously, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and Scott Pioli, former Browns executive, former general manager of the Atlanta Falcons. He was on NFL Network's Total Access last night and had this to say about the Browns' young linebacker.
It's not pulling up. Hold on.
All right, we'll get to that in just a second here. But listen, I imagine, Jim, he's going to say he was explosive. He was all over the field. You couldn't take your eyes off of him. He looks like a stud and a steal for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, he certainly does. I don't know. He looked tremendous. I know. Didn't he tell you he didn't think he played well?
Yeah,
the other
that's the
night?
first thing he said. He said, I screwed so many things up.
Wow.
He said, well,
I got it now.
that's pretty good. Let's hear Scott Pioli now on JOK.
Another player that I'm excited to see this weekend is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Last week against Jacksonville, he did exactly what I was hoping to see when he was coming out of Notre Dame. Their defensive coordinator in Cleveland, Joe Wood, did a great job of lining him up in multiple places. He played the run well, he covered well, and then he blitzed really well too. He did all of the things physically that I thought we were going to see. But what people really don't know about JOK is the fact that he's so intelligent. There's so many places that you can line him up, and he will know the responsibility of each position. So again, I'm really excited to see him again this week because he's a player that I think a number of teams may have overlooked and or underestimated.
You're up.
Yeah. Absolutely. He blitzed well at Notre Dame.
Yes.
He blitzed a lot at Notre Dame. He was the guy they called upon to get them out of trouble defensively, to make a big play, and he made a lot of them during his career. The other thing he did well, and everybody was worried about this, and, of course, we haven't seen any of this until we saw it on Saturday night. It's fundamental. He tackled well.
Oh, God.
He wrapped up, and they were down. Everyone kept saying, he's too light. He's very light to be a linebacker. He can get there, but will people bounce off of him? And the answer the other night was no.
And they went backwards.
They went down.
Yeah, they went down and they went backwards. He tackled. He went right through him. It's that explosiveness and that power. I think he gets the most out of every pound on his frame. But, yeah, he was – and one of the things coaches have told us all along is this is a guy who doesn't make the same mistake twice. So if he thought he made a bunch of mistakes, that means he won't make them again. And so look out is what I have to say. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah quickly becoming – must watch. I mean, even in practice, the second he comes on the field, his speed, it jumps out. It really does. And we're talking about being on the field with the guys with a lot of tremendous speed and athletic ability, and there's something unique about him.
Nathan, you take a look at a guy like him and the way he plays, and we only have a one-game test on this, but we're very excited with what we saw Saturday night, and you can envision him chasing down Lamar Jackson. Okay, there were too many times Lamar Jackson, against us anyway, wins the race.
Yep.
And that happens a lot no matter who he plays against. I mean, it happened in the playoff game in Tennessee last year when he just broke away. And he can do that, and he still might do that. But you like your chances with a guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, matching him in the race and getting him down.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden you're hoping you have JOK, you have Delpit with that
right.
kind of speed. You've got John Johnson, you've got linebackers, Anthony Walker Jr. You have a group of guys, especially if you're in that dime with Harrison, John Johnson, and Grant. We finally got to see that yesterday in the team period, where you can say we can match up with this speed, and you're not going to be able to outflank us time after time. And that's an exciting thing for this defense because, look, in our division, that's the first goal. Win this division, host a home playoff game, and then let's go ahead and try to go on a nice little run in the playoffs. So we're going to take a quick break because when we come back, we will have the head coach of your Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski, at the podium here, getting ready for another day of practice at the Cross Country Mortgage campus. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Today sponsored by Chub Crunch. Cinnamon Toast Squares, just delicious in milk, benefiting a wonderful cause and supporting a local hero. Jim, I bet. Too bad we didn't have a bowl of milk.
I
didn't complete the whole gift for you. Be having the time of our lives out here.
I would ask for that, but that's under the category of nutrition, and that would be a problem. I would
not between the hours. No
bowl of cereal for you.
Not for you, Jim. Maybe Deke. All right, we've got the head coach of our Cleveland Browns. Gibbe, is that what you're saying? It looks like you're ushering a plane in. Okay, we've got him. Kevin Stefanski at the podium.
You guys are down. Hold on.
Forward to seeing them in First Energy Stadium. With that, I will take any questions.
Kevin, do you have a sense of how the practice is going to go tomorrow? Like how long, what kind of sessions you're going to have?
Yeah, I think it's going to be about 2 hours long, both days. The second day we'll have some red zone work with them. We'll get 2-minute drills on both days, but it'll be a good practice for us.
Kind of off that question, Kevin, obviously you sat down with Coach Judge to kind of go over things that you wanted. Like, what's that process like about getting things that you guys want to do and also things they need to do?
Yeah, we just Joe and I spoke way back when in the spring and talked about doing this, and very open-ended with what do you need to see, what do we need to see, and here's what we've done, and share some schedules together and then modify it with the coaches as the coaches talk to each other.
And I know normally in practice sometimes you're giving the other team a look. Is that at all the case, or is this literally just kind of you guys going best on best?
Yeah, I think it's you're not running cards to that point. There'll be competitive periods, but AVP will script the offense and get that to their defense coaches, say, hey, we're in this personnel in these plays, so that they can script their defense. So you're working together to make sure you get good work.
Is Joe still mad you beat him out for the quarterback job?
No. Joe's a good coach, good man. Excited that he's going to be out here. Can't wait to catch up with him.
You talked about how much he loves ball. Was he a guy at that age? I know that's 25 years ago, Kevin, but that you could identify as somebody that was going to stay around football his whole life? Yeah,
without a doubt. I know his dad played football. It's important to Joe's family. I played with Joe's older brother, Jim, so definitely a football family.
How does that relationship factor into you guys?
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I know what Joe's about. I know what he believes in. So there's that relationship there where we know our two teams, and I think you can get good, productive work when you have that.
What level of speed would you say you're going to go at in team period?
Full speed.
Full speed?
Yeah.
No.
Not live, but full speed.
Is it fair to say, guys that we don't see out here today, probably not going to see them Thursday and Friday?
I wouldn't blanket statement any one player, Jake, but we'll just continue with all of our guys to listen to the doctors and listen to the trainers and make the smart decisions.
Will you do one-on-ones against the Giants before the team period? Like
we will do. We will. Yes. Yep.
And how did yesterday was the first day back for Grant and Ronnie?
Yeah.
Both in team drills. How did both look?
Yeah, good to see him out there. We're obviously not going to have them run 60 plays, so still being smart about how we do that. But they look good to me. They both Grant and Ronnie have good understandings of what we're doing schematically, so I thought they did a nice job out there.
When we talked to you yesterday about Mac dodging a significant injury, you said he was day-to-day, and then practice starts and he's out there.
Yeah.
First, how great was it to have him out there right away like that? And did you know when you talked to us that he was going to be available?
Yes. We're all day-to-day. I would tell you with that, any injury in any game, when a guy leaves a game, you hate to see it. Your mind immediately goes, I hope this is okay. And when we get that MRI imaging back, and we're hoping that we get good news. So with Mac, I feel like we got some good news. And I mean, he's injured, so he's truly, still working through an injury. But it was great to see him back out there.
With Felton, did you know right away you were going to be able to play him at both spots, or did you think you were going to have to pick one early on?
He played both in college, Zach, so you knew he'd be able to do both. We have always planned to bounce him back and forth. There's been some injuries to the wide receivers that have made it really necessary for him to go into that room for some extended periods of time. He's done a really nice job with both. So we're going to try and keep him at the running back position as much as we can this week, get a good look at him there. But, with his tape and his experience, it's not surprising that he can do both.
We've talked to Ronnie about how tough it is to kind of come in September and find a place to live, have to learn the defense. But from a coaching standpoint, do you feel more comfortable with him? I mean, you guys kind of had to get to know him on the fly a little bit last year, too. Are you more comfortable with him now?
Without a doubt. And has he been here a calendar year? When did he get here?
I don't think he
Yeah. So, testament to him that he was able to come in and learn. And it was a similar scheme that he was coming from in Jacksonville, but he really took it upon himself to understand what we were doing and then grow his role as the weeks were on. But yeah, I just think it's a great example of guys that come in mid-season, late in the season, training camp, and you want them to hit the ground running, and Ronnie certainly did that.
Is it fair to say that Odell is not quite ready for live team snaps?
I think we're just following the discretion of the medical team, is what I would say.
Can you, do you think some jobs could be settled over these next 2 days? And you got to look to Kansas City coming up soon.
Yeah, I would tell you, Tony, that with these 2 days, obviously it's great work against a really quality opponent, and then with the preseason game. But we don't want to overvalue these 2 days versus last week Thursday or whatever it is. We want to make sure that this whole thing is a body of work. Will it be a good opportunity for guys to go up against a different scheme? Absolutely. But to say that jobs will be decided by these two, I think would probably be a little strong.
Stump said that you give him a number of carries for Nick Chubb before a game, and he tries to stick real close to that. Mm-hmm. What goes into deciding what that number is?
I think, historically you got to think about 17-game season, how many carries you want a guy to come out of it with, how many touches you want a guy to come out of it with. So seeing where Nick is in that part of the season helps us, with Nick in mind, helps us with a magic number, if you will. Stump does a great job of monitoring it and making sure that the flow of the game is what's most important. So, we're not overly dogmatic about it has to be this, but we want to start somewhere and say, here's the ballpark that we're looking for.
I would think it's easier with Kareem, right, that you don't feel the need to overwork Nick, but other times when he's rolling off run after run where it's like, I don't know, maybe we should stick with him for a while?
And again, I'd tell you that's where we're lucky to have Stump Mitchell. I think Stump has a great feel for that when a guy is having, like you said, breaking off a couple of big runs and you can keep him in there. There's other times when Stump can see him in his body language that he needs a break, and that's where the next guy comes in. And you'll see that with Kareem as well. Kareem will get his opportunity to break off a couple, and then here comes Nick because Kareem needs a blow.
Do you have those magic numbers across offensive skill?
I'd say it's more important from the running back position.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, do you want to still throw to Grant then? Okay. Okay. Coming in 20. I do not. All right, we're coming back in 10.
Call 888-860-WASH and use the promo code Emmett to save 20% on your perfect power wash.
Yeah.
Now open at the shops at Marketplace in Aurora. It began 70 years ago with one family, and now Aurora is the newest home to Sheely's.
Okay. Yeah. So we have. We just have the one until. The second CBD break. So
Furniture collections and innovative appliances and mattresses. They're there for you beyond your purchase to service what they sell and offer free local delivery. Sheely's, the best things in life happen at home.
All right, we're coming in 30.
Great taste and exceptional flavor. Mr. Hero's got you covered. Whether it's our signature Roman burger, classic hot buttered cheesesteak, or a chicken choice, it's all simply delicious. Not to mention, we have 8 different sidekicks, including our mozzarella sticks, breaded mushrooms, and loaded tater tots. Let Mr. Hero do what we do best. Make your taste buds jump for joy. Stop in today or order online.
Mr. Hero, it's the taste you crave.
Cleveland Browns Daily live from training camp on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys ready? You are up.
All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Nathan Zegura, the voice of your Cleveland Browns. Jim Donovan at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus, getting ready for the Browns to take the field for the last time in the 2021 training camp in front of the great fans who are making their way and matriculating into the campus right now to see this last day of practice before the Browns joint practices with the Giants. We apologize for the technical difficulties here. The internet went out everywhere, basically a big surge.
I'm told the entire building, the entire complex, down.
The campus.
The campus is down?
But it's back.
The campus is back.
It was a brief down but not out here at the campus.
Trying to figure out why.
And we are back with you, Kevin Stefanski.
It's like the Super Bowl that time. Remember when
the blackout down in New Orleans?
Yeah, the Super
49ers Ravens.
In the back of our gear, I have a rotary dial phone. And it is strictly because if we were to ever run into that situation, that we would be able to dial a regular rotary phone to get out, because that's what they used to call the Super Bowl when everything went down.
Do you remember Real Sports? HBO Real Sports was doing a long segment about televising the Super Bowl, and they were actually in there when it went out, and the guy was running around, and the reporter, might have been like Armin Katayan or something. Am I under the impression right now that we are in a blackout here? And the guy goes, yeah, yes. And you're right. They're calling the game off a phone. Imagine that in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
You would think they would have 29 backups, if not 30.
A generator, right? If not 30. You'd have the whole – yeah, you think you'd have like a little generator in each
by
broadcast
each headset
area.
mic, yeah.
Wow, off of a phone. So you like to get to – I used to love that when I was a kid.
We have one in the back of the rack unit. There's a little room – or there's a little spot, and there's a phone that we could pull out that Jim and Doug could do play-by-play by handing a old-school telephone back and forth to one another.
And speaking into, like, the phone.
Yes.
Do you remember the time that our headsets went out up in the booth? Doug, and then finally when we got them back, there was delay, so we were hearing ourselves, like, what we said, like a second and a half behind that.
Not
and it
so
was
difficult.
And, so I took one headphone off, and I'm calling the game, and Doug would not take his headphones off, but he was, like, declining any activity. He kept when I would look to him, he would wave his hands like he was declining a penalty. We were deferring.
Yeah,
he was deferring. And I go, you have to say something.
I remember.
Do you remember
day.
that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was something.
Where was that?
It was in Cleveland.
It was a home game.
It was a home game. Yeah, we had a new set of equipment that we had a few bugs in.
Yep.
I think it was the year we were going to London, didn't you? And you had a brand new set of road equipment.
We were testing.
Right.
We were using the London equipment,
So
we
17?
knew that it worked.
2000.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yep. And we
All
of
the
a
bad
sudden
years run together.
Like we were fading down because actually the equipment worked fine. The line failed.
I feel like, did I know about this on the sideline?
Not at all.
So
I don't remember this at all.
Your earpiece or headset must have been fine, but Doug declined. He deferred and declined that he would not be part of the broadcast.
I can talk to every single person in their ear solo, or I can talk to everybody, the all-call. And I got his ear, and I was like, what are you doing?
You must participate.
You got to talk.
Did he just turn around and start facing the wall? Like, I'm not even looking at you anymore.
Yeah. That might have been more effective than the actual declining to talk.
Just throw it out there.
It was a bit much for everyone. It was, by halftime, I needed a cocktail.
Right.
Well, guys, speaking of, got some
wait
big
a
news
minute.
here.
Yeah.
Cameron Malveaux says, listen, all you Drew Forbes bettors, not today.
Not today.
First one out on the field. Forbes, I'm pretty sure he's going to make his way onto the podium. He's still got 2 spots left to see if he can get out there. But Cameron Malveaux, your first one out there today. And actually, I got a chance to talk with defensive line coach Chris Kiffin, and you'll hear that later today. That's our exclusive Cleveland Browns daily interview today. And Cameron Malveaux put on 20 pounds of muscle this offseason, because you look at him, this is a tall guy, so he's got a good long arm.
Yeah, right.
He's able to, reach the offensive linemen oftentimes before they can reach him, but he needed that power to back it up and worked incredibly hard, and he's a guy that's fighting to make this team now. I think that it remains, even though we haven't heard much about it, there remains optimism that Takk McKinley will be back sooner rather than later, which is good, because behind him you've got Porter Gustin, you've got Cameron Malveaux, who his 2 career sacks, Jim, are the most of anybody in that defensive end room.
How about that?
Not named Garrett, Clowney, or McKinley.
Yeah. Joe Jackson's in there, right?
Joe Jackson
played
in the room
very well Saturday night.
He did. And
isn't it amazing, Nathan? You mentioned about him, Cameron Malveaux, putting on the weight. He's not alone. Like Denzel Ward put on weight. Some other people put on weight. Andrew
Harrison
Billings
Bryant.
took off weight.
That's right.
Harrison Bryant put on weight. It's obviously at the end of the year last year, maybe upon their exit interviews, they asked them, hey, listen, maybe you want to put on a little bit more. And they go to it, and I guess they do it the right way, because they all look great.
Yeah, it's good weight. And then you had Jordan Elliott, who lost a little bit of weight to get quicker and then realized,
maybe he lost too much.
I need to put some weight back on. And so he's in the process of doing that. But he had an excellent day yesterday. But, again, you'll hear that interview with Chris Kiffin. Linebacker coach Jason Tarver continues to win the first coach out battle amongst the coaches here for training camp, the Cross Country Mortgage Campus. I'm still surprised, frankly, that we haven't seen Drew Forbes yet. It's actually, I'm stunned by it. He's still plenty of time, though. Malveaux's out there. Forbes has time to make his way down, as he does along the far side, the Cross Country Mortgage Campus, to get out there. When you heard Coach Stefanski earlier, Jim, talk about these joint practices, said red zone, 2-minute drills. Are we going to do one-on-ones? Yes, of course we are. Are we going to go full speed? Yes, we will. It won't be live. But he said the relationship that he has with Joe Judge and his family, noting that he had played football with Joe's older brother, Jim Judge, that he thinks that relationship is going to allow them to get the good, productive work. And you talked at the beginning that is going to allow them to keep this thing and these players under control.
Yeah, and no doubt about it. That's interesting when you hear the connections that they have. You think about it, that it's just only in coaching, because they bump into each other all the time, and maybe sometimes they've worked with each other. But this was like a family know-all. Yeah. This was knowing, a brother and knowing the family then, because, families get around each other when you're dealing with teams. That's pretty cool. Kevin, he's had a pretty interesting past. Ivy League guy, played in the Ivy League. He's
freshman of the year.
Freshman of the year in the Ivy League. So it is interesting how these connections are made. So that's going to be important. Coming up, how these practices go off, and that they go off well, and that the main thing is both teams get a lot of good work in.
That's what it's about.
That's
for
what
the
it's
Browns.
about.
This is going to be, probably the most extensive work of the preseason for your once. Coach Tarver goes running around. Andrew Billings, number 2. Forbes could miss his first podium if he's not the first guy, the next man out of the locker room.
At least, please, be the first offensive guy out.
I mean, come on, Forbes. We've been hyping you up. Safest bet in town. Jeez Louise. I love this line.
This is Simone Biles like. He'll settle for the bronze.
Hopefully he gets there. Mac Wilson, he said yesterday's day-to-day. He obviously went through practice, wasn't in the team drills, but did individual position work, and as well as he did some special teams. There he is. Thank you.
The world is right.
That's right. Forbes out there, number 3, still on the podium. Podium streak intact. That's what we needed to see there. But I loved it when he said, because this was always one of my favorite sports centers when they list somebody as day-to-day. And Dan Pack, but then again, aren't we all? And he dropped that. He said, we're all day-to-day. Yeah, I knew Mac. Well, if they asked him, did you know Mac was actually going to practice after you told us he was day-to-day? He said, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I'm the coach. I sure did.
I know that. I know all. And he does. He does.
Yes, he does. He also knew, speaking of, that Demetric Felton, they always plan to have him bounce back and forth, and he's done, obviously, a great job at both. He'll be a running back this week, which is interesting. I wonder if in the joint practice if he'll get some receiver work or if he really will be. He said, we're going to try our best to keep him exclusively at running back this week, what that looks like. And you were commenting as you heard that from Stefanski that they really did have a plan for him all along.
Yeah, and he's a busy guy. Now, he did it in college, obviously, and he's done it a lot, so he's kind of used to the work. But now you're at the NFL level, which sometimes can be really, you can be in awe of what you have in front of you to learn a system. But he handled it well. His workload was steep, I thought, on Saturday night in Jacksonville. He handled everything well. He was, he even went back and returned. That's great. It is amazing that they took a look at him and they had a plan for him. In other words, you say, well, 6th-round draft choice, they'll just squeeze him in. The preseason will be very important for him. But there's been a lot of planning, on his resume to get him in there and see what they can get the most out of him.
That's one of the things to me, and again, it goes back to we always talk about, the 4 Ps, that they're prepared, they've got a plan, a process to implement the plan, and tremendous poise above all. But that they don't look at it as some really good teams might say, oh, here's a 6th-round pick. If he shows us something, great.
Good.
If not, they had a development plan for him. They don't, and there's no reason not to, but we know far too often things like that do kind of just get swept under the rug. But here they have a level of detail and specificity and a plan for absolutely everybody on this roster. And I think right now they have a plan in mind for all 85. They know that, look, we have to get to 80, and 5 guys probably won't be here. But, look, we were surprised the initial cut. Yet 3 of the guys were injured. Carlson, you didn't expect, and, of course, he goes on IR. Switzer goes on IR.
Right.
Keandre Thomas, who had shown a lot of promise as an undrafted free agent corner, hurts his hammy. They waive him with it, and now he's reverted back, cleared waivers. He is on IR. And so you never know where those spots are going to come, so you've got to have a plan for everybody because you don't know who ultimately you are going to need.
Yeah, wasn't Meander hurt at one time?
He missed, unfortunately for him.
Time.
He missed basically the last 2 weeks prior to being released. And then Cordell Iwuagwu, who was the guard that, he only got 4 snaps. And, Bill Callahan thinks they have 6 guards here who are NFL starting caliber.
Gosh.
And unfortunately, he was number 7 behind those 6.
I mean, remember how he went in just looking for a right guard, a number 1 right guard that one year and couldn't come up with the answer. But on the other side of that, the rainbow is that the pot of gold there is Wyatt Teller. That's how you ended up with Wyatt Teller. But, gosh, they tried everybody and their uncle to play right guard that day.
They sure
those
did.
days through training camp and could not come up with an answer.
They had a 3-person rotate. It was like every day.
Every day, yeah.
This is so much better, the continuity. And we've been fortunate due to injury or with the lack of, knock on wood, with the O-line. You've had your starters have gotten all the work together. The backups have gotten all the work together. Chris Hubbard at times would be in and out as he comes back, but now seems to be in much more often than not. Remember last year in training camp, J.C. Treader missed
the entire camp. Yeah, remember he had a procedure.
Yeah.
And then he shows up in Baltimore on opening day and plays in that game.
He's ready to go.
But you're right, he didn't. We never saw him.
No.
During training camp.
Nick Harris got all those reps, and now your second-team line, you've got Hudson and Hubbard at the tackles. You got Dunn and Blake Hance have been working as those second-team guards, and Nick Harris at center. And, Colby Gossett and Drew Forbes, who's podiumed again. Those 2 guys have been very impressive as well. Forbes, in fact, did not allow a single pressure as a pass blocker against the Jags in his preseason debut. And remember, that's the first time that Drew Forbes has been on the field in almost 2 years.
Yeah, that's right, because he opted out last year. And he was one of the guys, didn't they, when they were looking for guard?
He was.
They gave him a shot at guard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
By the way, we got from Chris Victory Monday says, playing with fire, calling Forbes the safest bet in town. Bettors were sweating today, but alas, our champion of the people proves accurate. Thank you very much, Drew Forbes. Yeah.
Wow.
It was close. It was close. Closer than you wanted to see. Porter Gustin making his way out onto the field right now for the Browns as well. Listen, the other thing that came out of the press conference is that, talking about Grant and Ronnie, smart. He said they were being smart with them. They looked great out there. And what he said, and this is the important part, they have a very good understanding of what we want to do schematically.
Right.
And Ronnie played in it to some degree, but it's those extra walkthroughs that they've been participating, all the DBs and linebackers, to work on those nickel and dime packages, even when those guys weren't able to practice, that I think is really going to allow them to hit the ground running. And just like JOK did, despite missing those first 10 days, being on the COVID reserve list.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, to be able to get out there and know where you're going right away, on the other side, helps you that you don't get hurt. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing out there, you're very wide open to get hurt again. So to be able to go out there, though, and pick up the speed, and I think that's why Delpit looks so happy today, is that he took it out onto the field. All the work that I'm sure is, not the kind of work he wanted to be able to do because he wasn't full-form football ready to go because of the injury. And yet he went out there yesterday and he got through it. That's a victory. That's a win for him.
It is, and now we got to let's keep stacking those wins.
That's right,
for
stack
Grant
them
Delpit.
up. Good.
And you're right. He seemed happy when he spoke with the media at the podium today. And when we come back, we are going to hear from Grant Delpit himself. Nathan Zegura, the voice of the Browns. Jim Donovan here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. Thanks for listening to Hour 1. Another hour to come. Delpit, line coach Chris Kiffin, all coming up on Cleveland Browns Daily. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Cleveland Browns Daily. The Browns players making their way onto the field here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus. Nathan Zegura and Jim Donovan. Wanted to remind you really quickly that the Browns high school football game of the week is back, presented by Ohio Cat and in association with MedLiminal. Fans can vote now to determine this week's game on clevelandbrowns.com and at Browns on Twitter. Polls close Thursday at noon. This week's candidates are Avon versus Brunswick,
Good game.
Hudson versus Solon, St. Vincent St. Mary versus Wadsworth, and Glenville versus Chardon.
Chardon had a great team last year.
That should be a high-profile
like to add
game.
a little tidbit to the line.
I like that. No, please do.
Yeah, Hilltoppers, yeah.
The winning team from the selected game of the week receives $2,500 for their high school football program. Vote today. As we said, we're going to the podium. Let's hear now from Grant Delpit.
Going full safety package today.
Full safety package today.
What's up, Grant? How you doing?
How great was it to be out there yesterday, and how did you feel?
I felt good. It was a good first day back, and hopefully today's better.
Has it been frustrating waiting for them to clear you to get out there?
No, I've been taking it slow, just making sure I come back 100%. It's been frustrating not being out there with my teammates, but when the time comes, I'm available.
You missed him last year and then started off with his hamstring. Did you? How far behind are you?
I'm not behind at all.
Okay, good. And why is that?
I've been preparing, working out every day, making sure I'm working 2 times harder than the next person. That's a mentality you got to have, so I'm not behind at all.
Hey, what'd you lean on last year to get you through that? It's a tough way to start a career.
It's a part of the game. It could happen. I always look at it could be worse. It definitely could be worse. I definitely have a newfound respect for people, that deal with have one limb maybe, or just have gone through, terrible injuries and are stuck with it for life. So I was able to experience that for 1 year, and not lean on my family and really my support system. So it was a learning experience.
There was a lot of hype when you got drafted, right? People were very excited you got here, and obviously last year didn't go well, but this year I see you're listed as like an X factor. You're listed as one of the guys that people are really watching. Do you maybe feel a little bit of that outside pressure that people just understand how good they think you can really be?
Yeah, I deal with pressure my whole life. It's something that comes with football. Something that comes with being an NFL player, college player. So it's nothing new to me. But I like the fact that people believe in me and that I can do that. So I'm hoping to show that, prove that this year.
When you guys were out there yesterday with Johnson and Ronnie Harrison, where were you exactly lining up in that alignment, the 3 safety look?
The only 3 safety look we have is in dime, but it's just wherever Coach Woods puts us, man. That's a him question.
He puts a lot on his safeties in his scheme. So how does that excite you? It's a lot of responsibility. How are you taking that?
I take it well. Of course, you want to be involved. Any safety wants to be around the ball, do a job. So having us 3 on the field in one package, that's going to be great for the defense. And I'm excited for it.
But do you feel like you guys are sort of the key? You have a whole kind of new defense. No?
I don't think the safeties are the key. I think everybody in the defense plays a part.
When John's out there, we can hear him talking, and it seems like he sees things before they happen. So what's it like being out there? I know you haven't really been out there with him a lot, but just being around him and seeing him out there.
It comes with experience and confidence, and having seen it before. He's been in the league for a while, so that comes with that. Hopefully I can pick up on that fast. It's part of the game.
When you were out there yesterday, did you feel just as fast and everything?
Yeah. I felt like second nature. I ain't really missed a step. So hopefully come out today, repeat it, and feel great again.
Just curious, what inspired the owl tattoo?
Wisdom. It's just, I have a lot of tattoos, man. I'm not trying to go too crazy. My mom, I know you don't like it, but it's just something simple.
I asked Ronnie before, we haven't really seen this defense together yet. There was a lot of talk about all the new faces, how tough it was going to be to mesh. How anxious are you to see what potential this group has got?
I'm anxious. I'm waiting on the day that we're all healthy. That's the main thing, get through camp healthy. So I know people might be frustrated that we're not out there practicing one day, but the main goal is getting ready for week 1. Kansas City Chiefs.
When you're out physically for an extended amount of time, like missing those physical reps, I feel like you might have to put a little bit more emphasis on those mental reps and staying ready that way.
Oh, yeah.
For you personally, what do you value the most of that? Is it watching film? Is it being around your position coaches? Is it, just talking to watching the walkthroughs? What do you value the most?
All of it. It's not one above the other. Last year I was hurt, and I was up here the whole time. I didn't go back home, so I'm in meetings every day, watching film and watching every day. So I'm taking all those mental reps, being around the guys, and that's definitely helped me mold into a year 2 player. Everybody asks me, does it feel like I'm still a rookie? No. I've been here for a while. It feels like so. Just all that, bringing it all together.
With that, Grant, since you were injured last year, do you want to play in one of these last 2 games, last 2 preseason games, to get your feet wet?
Yeah, definitely.
We asked Greedy about, obviously you guys have a relationship and going through what you guys did last year, and he just spoke about how you really motivated one another. What did that mean to have somebody like Greedy be able to be there with you through it?
Yeah, it was cool. Of course we didn't want to be there. We didn't want to be hurt, but it was good to push each other since we've known each other for a while.
Do you feel like this experience from last year was like the biggest challenge of your life?
Biggest challenge of my life? No. We've been through some stuff. I know everybody's been through some stuff, so I was just hurt, really. So it wasn't like anybody died or anything like that. So it could be worse.
30.
Biggest challenge.
Biggest challenge in my life. That's a hard question, but I don't know. Maybe starting over when I was a kid, leaving home from New Orleans, moving to Houston, starting all over again, meeting new people, and starting a new life. That was hard. Probably 8, I think, 7, 8. Still,
2 good restaurants.
Yeah.
Left a lot of friends, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
You're up.
Grant Delpit, and I love it. He said, no, I don't feel like a rookie. I've had a year's worth of meetings and mental reps and all of that. And I think for him, it's pretty clear. He's got great perspective, right? He said, yeah, I was injured. I'm not injured anymore. There are a lot of worse things that can happen to people and worse things, and I got a lot of respect for people who have to deal with these things full time. I was able to come back and be myself, and he felt fast, and he is somebody that you are just very excited to see. Uh-oh, Jim, this is going to be a close encounter right here. Jay, okay, coming by, my
there
man.
It is. Big smile, absolutely.
Yes. You never know what's going to happen at the cross-country mortgage campus. You never know who you're going to see. Good chance you're going to see a Browns player pretty close to where we're at since we're right on the field, obviously. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that the toughest thing for an athlete, for instance, is to go through being off to the side, shut down because of injury, and his was so early, along with Greedy Williams, in training camp. Same day, wasn't it?
It's the same day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, they talk about the loneliness of the long-distance runner. I mean, the loneliness of a player like that, especially a kid that was a high pick, just like Greedy, they both second-round draft choices, and then to be totally away from it and know right from the start, from the moment that happened, that you're done for the year. And you're in for a long, long rehab process. And then the team goes off on this magical season. And, that's a tough thing to have to deal with up here. And I'm pointing to my head, everybody, mentally. Don't you think? I
100%.
I think that's a big mountain to get over.
Because what happens is, as a microcosm of it, is Grant goes into the facility when that happened.
Right.
And practice goes on. And the team goes on.
The next guy up.
And the next guy is now in your role, and you're not going to get it back. And I think it was very fortunate for both Grant and Greedy. You didn't want them to have to be there together, and obviously the team would have rather had one of them or both of them rather than neither. But to have those guys who had a relationship kind of go through it together,
that's true,
I think was beneficial to both of them. They both have said things to that effect. And so, in terms of a bad scenario, it maybe was the best of a bad scenario for both of those young guys, but they're back now and they're moving forward, and that's exciting. And Grant is such a talented guy. As he said, look, I've dealt with pressure. There have been high expectations for him for such a long time in his career. In 2019, he was one of the probably 5 best college football players, period, in the country. And so he fought through injuries the final year and played, and last year obviously can't fight through that one. But to your point, the mental part of it, I think, is the biggest challenge. I have friends, who are professional wrestlers, and when you get hurt, the good thing is he got to be here at the facility.
Sure.
But in the WWE, when you get hurt, a lot of times you're at home rehabbing. You're down in Alabama with Dr. James Andrews rehabbing. The show's going on. They're still touring.
Yeah.
They're just not talking about you. Your friends aren't checking in because they're so busy. And I think that mental aspect is hard. And that's why I think it's, as I said at the beginning, just fortunate that not only did he go through it with somebody else, but he went through it with another guy who was at LSU on a roster with him that he knew. And I think that probably helped both those guys get through.
Oh, I think it's a tough thing. I think it's a really lonely type of situation to go through. And again, just the magical ride that the team went on. And I know they do a wonderful job here of making you still feel like you're a part of it, because you are, but it's tough in your own mind to say, I'm really a part of this, because you're not with them day in and day. You're not over in Pittsburgh at the playoff game. And it's really difficult. So to muscle your way mentally through that, not only to get through the physical part of it, but to get through it mentally might be equally as hard as it is physically, I think, to come out on the other side of it and be ready to go. And I think that's why he looked like a more relaxed, happier guy today than I've seen him even on the sideline during camp when he's been on the sideline and he hasn't been able to participate.
Significantly so, and there's no doubt that he is a specimen. I mean, when you just see him walk out, he is in tremendous condition, and I think it will be exciting. I'm going to go wherever coach tells me to go. The safeties aren't the most important part of this defense. We're all important.
That's a Coach Woods question.
I was going to say.
That's a Coach Woods question.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything that I'm not supposed to say here in this press conference situation. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll let you know what's going on here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus. No, Gibby, you don't want to take a break? It's 2:15. I thought you might like us to be on clock. Then we got 2:30. We got Coach Kiffin. Or do you want us to go? You want us to go crazy? We could go crazy. Okay. Yeah, but it's a long segment with, really nothing to back up. Like, yesterday we had a round table. It was Jim and Gribbs, and we were bouncing ideas around.
Is he at another round table today, Gribbs? Is he he's got a different round table every day?
Every day.
Or is he actually just sitting at a round table?
He's the knight of the round table.
There's a good chance he's sitting at a round table right now.
When I was a kid growing up in the Bay Area, round table pizza was a delightful pizza. It had a knight's theme to it. It was wonderful.
Do you I'm sure it was. Do you think they'll put Delpit in the game on Sunday?
I think we will see how he does through these joint practices.
It sounded like if he was going to reveal anything during that thing, and he really didn't reveal much during the interview session, other than he's so happy to be back here, that he really wants to play.
Yeah, and I think he will. He needs the reps.
Yeah.
You talked to Jeff Howard, and he says mentally the kid has done everything we could possibly have asked. He is ready from a mental standpoint. What we need to see from him is the doing, and that can only be done on the field. So, look, JOK didn't have a huge ramp-up period before. It was one day in practice where he kind of did some things, and then it was basically, you're back.
Yeah.
And so if he's healthy, just like JOK was a different thing, obviously, but if the hammy's good, and the fact that he's out there says
again
it's
today.
good.
Yeah, when you're out there the second day, folks, that means the first day you passed.
You passed the test. So I would think he'd ramp up, and yeah, I would expect him not only to participate in the practices against the Giants, but I expect him to play in the games. I look around, JoJo Natson getting a day off, and this looks like a day for the guys coming back from injury. JoJo Natson with the day off. It looks like Chris Hubbard with a day off as well down on the offensive line. He's on the bikes. He's joined by, I see Myles Garrett down there on the bikes with Chris Hubbard. And so we'll keep an eye on, who's in, who's out for the Browns today. Another thing that's nice to see, Tony Fields. We haven't seen him on the field.
I know.
He's over there, no boot on his foot anymore, so that's progress
yeah.
for Tony Fields, and it's good to see a guy we haven't seen for 1 second in this camp, and somebody that, the team likes. They like his skill set. Also nice to see Sheldrick Redwine out here as well, not in a boot, and he'd suffered that ankle injury. So perhaps those two guys getting closer to being able to get back out here and participate. And for Fields, looking to compete in an incredibly competitive linebacker room, and Redwine now with the play of Richard LeCounte in that preseason opener, and Javonte Moffat's performances thus far, it's a crowded safety room.
Hey, the other battle that goes on, and there's no clear-cut leader in the pack other than we know the guy, and that's Cody Parkey and Chase McLaughlin. Both kicked well. Parkey banked one the other night off the left upright. But,
it's more of a grazing. It was just a gentle, it was a brush.
The ball had no paint on it.
Yeah, just a brush.
Okay.
It wasn't a doink. It was a brush.
But anyway, those two have been kicking well. They really have. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll. But I would imagine, Nathan, they would alternate again on Sunday.
Yeah, that's, I think, going to be the way until they make the final decision. My question for you, Jim, would be, do you think that this is a situation where tie goes to the Parky?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I think the fact that the other thing is the knowledge of that stadium is going to be very important. And let's face it, you're going to be in big games, okay? And you're going to be in big games, and those games could easily come down to a kick. And you don't know how that weather's going to go down there, but it's probably going to be troublesome. The fact that he's dealt with that before, and I'm talking about Parky, and he certainly dealt with it 3 weeks in a row when they had those home games last year, and they were all bad weather games, and he actually got through that pretty well.
He hit some great balls into the dog pound when you would watch the opponents attempt to kick down there and look clueless.
Right.
I think if there were three things that I would put on Parky's side, number one, what you just mentioned, the Knowledge First Energy Stadium. And it was fun. I got to see those guys. They get work during the week at First Energy Stadium. They went out there yesterday. Yeah. The two kickers, Charlie Hewlett and, of course, the Hammer, were down at First Energy Stadium and getting some kick practicing, obviously, before the game this weekend. His knowledge of that. The second is he went 11 for 11 for you in the playoffs. 3 of 3 on field goals, 8 of 8 on extra points. And those are pressure situations, and he's already proven he can come through for you.
He had one little bad patch.
Leading to the playoffs, right before.
Right, and it actually wasn't as much field goals. He missed a couple of extra points.
That's what I was going to say.
It's
all about the PAT.
Well,
and he went 8 of 8 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
8 of 8, which I think that's a little feather in his cap. And then, just keeping that battery together is nice. And the kick that he made, well, it did brush the upright. There's no denying that it did that. That was from 48.
48
and that would have,
yards
would
out,
have been the longest he made. As long last year was 46, and it would have been good from. It was high up on the upright when it made contact.
Yeah.
So that was good from 55, which I think was one of the things you want to see. Can he put that kind of a boot into the ball? And I think the answer that we saw there was yes. But McLaughlin's kicked it great in the ball. I'll tell you what. It looks very pretty coming off of his foot.
It does. Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Is that a case? Would you reserve one of those 16 spots on the practice squad for a kicker, just in the event someone does get COVID?
Absolutely think so. And we did it. Didn't we do that last year with Matt McCrane?
Matt McCrane was on there. He was always at the call.
Yeah.
Wasn't it close one time?
I think it
that
was.
He might have
there
to
was
kick?
a close contact.
Yeah. So I would. I think most teams will and did and will do it.
It makes
again.
a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You just that's the one position that you don't have a whole room of guys just sitting, can step up. It's that one, and that's why a lot of teams will keep a quarterback on their practice squad because just in case you don't want to end up in the situation now with everybody being vaccinated, close contacts won't knock out a room like it did. I mean, let's not forget that the Denver Broncos started a wide receiver who had played some quarterback in college in an NFL game a year ago.
Quarterback, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you could still get it, and if you get it, you're out.
You're
out.
Right.
So you better have your back. It goes back to the conversation you guys had yesterday about Case Keenum. Like, it's not a guy that you discount or disgard easily. Like,
no,
not at all.
The notion that he's all of a sudden expendable because Lauletta looked good against the Jags in a preseason game,
no.
that doesn't jive for me.
Well, the other thing, and not that and you just have to get prepared, and certainly this organization right now with this coaching staff, they are prepared, beyond prepared. But if you had to go into a game with Keenum, okay, and he had to play, there's no walk up, hey, guess what? Here's the offensive plays. We're going to have to cut back. We're going to have to streamline because of him. You're not going to have to do that at all. He knows the offense very, very well. He could go in and, as the coach has pointed out, operate the offense.
And that's the word, and that's a word that carries great weight with Kevin Stefanski, operate. I think, you were talking about the kickers. The other kind of battle that is out there, right, is the specialists.
Yes.
And who's going to ultimately be the returners for this team. And, JoJo Natson obviously wishes a flag didn't come down, but he gets credit in the coach's eyes for a great return. That one was set up very well by Mike Prefer and the design of that kind of flip from the right side, bring it back all the way to the left. But, is there room on a roster like this to have somebody who really purely just does returns?
Yeah. And the thing is, Nathan, and I was talking to Donovan Peoples-Jones today. He returned punts. He likes returning punts. That's not. He doesn't want that taken off his plate. he likes returning punts. So, I mean, and he did it very effectively. The main thing is it starts with catching the thing, and he catches them very, very well. So, but yeah, I don't know about you're right about this, and this roster is so tough to make right now, and it's so talent-rich. That would be an interesting thing. Could you afford to just have a guy that is so, specific to one area in returning kicks? I don't know.
Because it would be hard for me to envision, even if, let's say, JoJo Natson, they say, well, he can also play receiver. It's hard for me to imagine that he would get snaps over Schwartz or even Felton from what we've seen from Felton. And so
Felton becomes in the picture there now, too.
Yeah, and so I think that changes that dynamic. But I like what he said about DPJ wanting to return the punts. And, the first thing that Mike Prefer will tell you when you ask him about that with Donovan, he'll say, he never turned the ball over. And that's job one. When they kick it to us, that we then take possession of the football.
Yeah, I remember at one point it had gotten so 50-50 on guys catching punts that Jim Leonard, remember Jim Leonard? Now
when he was our punt catcher, he was not our punt returner.
No, he would just catch the punt.
Yes.
His job was to catch it, something he did very well. But yeah, that's how
we're going
bare
back.
bones we were.
That's 14-15, right? And Travis Benjamin had a couple ups and downs and travails.
Travis Benjamin had a huge fumble at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City when the Browns were kind of coming back in a game. And though he had some electric returns, he had gotten a bit of the yips, I think, catching punts. And he coughed one up in a comeback attempt at Kansas City where the Browns had some momentum going, and then he just kind of fell apart.
We even remember Devon Bess for a while. He also had one, I think, where he muffed one around midfield. And yeah, they brought Jim Leonard, and it was just you thought his family was hanging out above him in a blimp because he was always waving up to the sky. That's all he did. Go back there, give a little wave, catch it, and okay, well, if you punt it to the 22, we will take over at the 22. You punt it to the 12, we will begin at the 12.
He was a good guy.
He was a good guy, yeah.
Great
coach.
Very successful
at the University
coach.
of Wisconsin.
And I'm
That's
amazed.
Right.
I always keep thinking that he's going to get a head job somewhere, and I don't know. He's a real Wisconsin guy. Joe Thomas would tell you that, right? I think he really loves being there. So unless he became the Wisconsin head coach, I don't know that he would leave. You know how you said a lot of these assistant coaches on the Browns are saying, it would take something very special for me to leave this staff. I like this here. I like the organization here.
Yeah.
Jim Leonard, I think, is that kind of guy.
He was.
He was a good guy, though. He was a very smart player.
Oh, and he was a coach on the field.
He was a coach on the field.
That's what they said. Now he is a coach with a pretty impressive title.
He was a Mike Pettin, I want him on my roster guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Brought right in here and said, yes, you will be on this roster. All right. When we come back, we will hear from Browns defensive line coach Chris Kiffin go through that defensive tackle, defensive end rooms, a lot of competition, a lot of talent, perhaps not enough spots for them all. Hear what the D-line coach had to say about that. Nathan Zegura and the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, with you at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus. Browns Live is back today, 3 o'clock. Join us on the Browns YouTube channel and social media platforms. Myself, Ken Carmen, bringing you all the action today, tomorrow from the joint practice, and Friday from the joint practice
there
as
you
well.
go.
3 days in a row. And today's player guest on Browns Live, none other than Baker Mayfield.
Whoa.
So we've got that to look forward to, which is nice.
That's nice.
It is, indeed, it is nice. You know what else is nice? When we get access that you can't get anywhere else, an exclusive one-on-one interview with our defensive line coach, Chris Kiffin.
You guys are down.
Ready for the season, your room, a lot of new faces. Probably the most turnover of any room really on this team. That's true of all of the places on the defense, but, you know, the new guys. Let's start with the defensive ends. Jadeveon, I know we haven't seen him in a few days, but it was pretty clear when he was out here. Off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun having him out here. You know, the guys rally around him. He's a big character guy that works his tail off when he's out here, and the talent showed up. You know, those first couple practices, he was making a ton of plays, so it was really good to see, and, you know, can't wait to go to war with him on Sundays.
It's pretty nice to be able to start with some bookends like Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, I would imagine.
Absolutely, man. You get that position taken care of, then everything else usually falls in place, so that'll help our coverage. That'll help our run game inside and the linebackers, everything. It all goes hand in hand.
All right, let's go through some of the guys that are competing to make this roster, and then also to say, look, I deserve some playing time. We'll start with Porter Gustin, was with you last year, had some quality reps, got that interception against Pittsburgh. How is he continuing to progress?
Well, he's just like anybody. You know, you continue to get better with age and experience and reps in this business. So, you know, more than happy with Porter. He's always that guy that you can rely on to do the job right. You can throw him in at any time, any position. You know, and he just competes. He works his tail off. He studies. It's important to him. He's in here on his off days. So, I mean, he's the ultimate pro right now, and we'd love to have him on our team.
Cameron Malveau's a guy that seems to have flashed out here at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus, and when I got a chance to talk to him last week, he told me, I put on 20 pounds of muscle this offseason to improve my power. He said, I got the length, but I needed some of that power. How have you seen him be able to take that out onto the field?
Yeah, he's done that. Like you said, he worked his tail off this offseason. You know, I saw videos of him lifting in the weight room, just moving a ton of weight, like a guy that's just, you know, doing everything he can to fulfill his dream of playing in the NFL. And, you know, it showed up. He's a lot better than last year. He's improved in areas. You know, he's continuing to get better, understanding the scheme, understanding the offense, what they're giving him. But he plays his tail off. You know, he plays hard. He's physical. He's got a really good long arm as a pass rusher. So it's been a great camp to see, and I'm really happy for him.
Joe Jackson's a guy, and like Porter and Cameron, they were all active for you. Porter the whole season, but Cameron had a few games active for you. Joe Jackson did early in the season, recovered that fumble against Cincinnati in week 2, and Myles got that sack. He was all over the field, it felt like, in Jacksonville. 3 pressures, was around the quarterback a lot. How has he progressed from the U, and a guy that, you know, I think looked pretty good out here?
Yeah, that was really good for Joe to show up in the game the other night because, you know, all his hard work and dedication, you know, came to fruition there and got to see a glimpse of him because we've been seeing it in training camp. You know, every opportunity he gets, he makes the most of it. He has improved in all areas of his game. So, again, another guy, he's now going into his 3rd or 4th year, I believe, and continually getting better. He's a 280-pound defensive end that's strong and can move really well. So we're excited about Joe. We're excited about all that competition. They're all bringing out the best of each other.
For those 3, what is it that you really want to see from them? The joint practices coming up with the Giants, the preseason game with the Giants. How can somebody separate themselves in that group?
Make plays within the system, you know, continue to do your job at a high level, which they've all been doing. But then when it's time to make a play or get to the quarterback, you got to be able to do that. So that's what we're looking for. And obviously you bring in another team to do that, and the juice will get amped up. Those guys will be ready to roll. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right, rounding out your defensive end room, we have, of course, Curtis Weaver and Romeo McKnight. 2 young guys. Weaver, first time to be able to be on the field. A guy very productive in college. And Coach Stefanski told me, look, sometimes doesn't always look pretty, but he can get the job done. What have you seen in his progress and his development?
Yeah, he's, you know, a young guy. He's still working at it, but, you know, he's soaking up the knowledge from the older guys. He's working his tail off. He's studying pass rushers. He's trying to improve his game. So, you know, he's got a long ways to go, but a guy that puts that effort in, he's got some skill set to him. You know, we're excited about seeing what he can do when he does put it together.
Romeo McKnight's a guy I think that flashed a little bit against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A little bit on the smaller side, but a guy who competes. I think that's one thing when you watch him, it's clear this guy's going to give you everything he's got coming out of Charlotte.
Yeah, I think the personnel department did a great job identifying him as a guy to add to the roster. And, you know, he's done everything in his power here to make an impression, to show that he should, you know, stay here, be a developmental guy on practice squad, things like that. So we're excited about him. He works his tail off. He's got skills as a pass rusher. You know, he's just got to continue to be consistent and get better.
All right, so that's a look at the defensive ends. You got the whole D-line. Let's go talk about these defensive tackles. And this is a group that at one point we weren't sure who was going to be in that room. And then all of a sudden it feels like it is loaded. And difficult decisions that fortunately I don't have to make are going to have to be made at this position because there's so much talent there. Start with the two veterans, getting Billings back, the big man, and then Malik Jackson, who just seems to be a natural leader and just a stud, frankly, out on the field.
Yeah, starting with Malik because, you know, he is the glue of the room right now. You know, we bring in a guy like that with leadership who's been there, won a Super Bowl. He's been at the highest level. You know, he's been great. He's been the ultimate pro out there. You know, he's constantly coaching up the young guys, so he's been awesome to have. And then Billings, you know, it's good to get him rolling, get him back into football. You know, he played him the other night to get him some snaps because he hadn't played football in a year. And, you know, he's going to be just fine. We continue to work with him on dropping his weight a little bit and continuing to be better in all areas of his game, but he's going to be a solid player for us.
I remember talking to you a while ago, and obviously you were with that great line with the 49ers in 2019, and then you had said, you know, one of the lines that you always loved to study was Jacksonville in their heyday, and Malik was in there with Calais Campbell, and then all of a sudden Malik Jackson showed up on this roster, so that's got to be pretty fun for you. But the real question here is, are you going to start wearing headscarves on road trips?
I don't know what that's in reference to.
You didn't see Malik? He had an orange headscarf that he wore. He was frankly the top fashion star of the road trip in pretty much everybody's opinion. It's been unanimous.
Oh, I did not see that, but I I do know Malik doesn't shy away at spending money on his clothing and gear. He always looks very sharp, so I'll give him that.
All right, behind those two guys, you have a mix of youth and experience. You brought in Damian Square, a 9-year veteran, and Sheldon Day, a 5-year veteran that you knew from your time in San Francisco. And frankly, it seems like Sheldon's had an unbelievable camp. I've talked to some of the offensive linemen in one-on-ones. They say he's been the toughest guy to block in your room. Goes out there, Trevor Lawrence first snap, welcome to the NFL. Sheldon Day is going to put you on the ground. What have you seen from Sheldon?
Yeah, Sheldon's had a great camp. You know, he's a guy that really, it's important to him. He studies his craft. He studies other players. You know, he's a technician. Again, he's like having a coach on the field. He's a guy you can count on. So, you know, he's giving us everything he can right now, and he's showing up every single day, so I'm happy for him. And then Damian Square, you know, he's brought a lot of stuff to the room as well. Comes out, works every day. Same thing as Malik, like an older guy like that can give knowledge to these young guys as they're trying to find their way through, you know, another training camp. You can't put a number on that.
When you see a veteran like Sheldon, who, as you said, he's flashed out here, flashed against Jacksonville after practice, then he comes out and he's running extra sprints, doing all the little things it seems like he can to make sure that, hey, I deserve to be on this roster and I want to be on this roster.
Absolutely. You know, there's guys that you can't teach that stuff to. You know, it's just in them. They're natural-born leaders. They're natural-born workers. And, you know, that's probably why he's at the level he's at in his profession, you know. So it's awesome to see. Again, he's bringing along the young guys, too, always giving knowledge, and love having him here.
All right, the young guys. There's a quartet of the guys with not a lot of experience in the NFL. Jordan Elliott, obviously last year's third-round pick, dropped some weight coming into it. It was noticeably quicker, but now saying I need to add some weight, get some of that strength back. Kind of been some up and down, he would even say, some inconsistency, but flashes. When he flashes, it's really, really good. How have you seen him progress here in the second year?
Yeah, you know, he did lose a little weight, and then he wanted to be quicker and of that nature, and he was. But then he realized very quickly that's hard to be 285 at this level and play inside, and so he's put on some good weight, and you know, over the couple weeks of camp, and getting his body back to closer to last year, you know, 300, 305, and it showed the last couple days. He's put together some good couple days of work, and getting back to himself, and you know, just trying to be consistent. If he can be consistent, you know, he's got all the tools to be a really valuable player for us inside.
Tommy Togiai, this year's fourth-round pick, strength. You know he's got that compact, that quick first step. How has he kind of progressed? And a guy who, you know, coming out of Ohio State, played in big games. Obviously, the bowl game against Clemson, he had a great tape in that one. And he's shown at times out here, but you see that strength certainly in a very compact build.
Yeah, he is. He definitely is. But that's going to be his game, you know, speed and quickness, a little bit undersized, but really, really strong when he does get into guys. So, you know, he's continuing to learn to play with his strength. Out here battling some of these bigger guys, and that's fun to see. You know, it's fun to see him get better every day. And then, you know, yeah, we showed his tape of sacking Trevor Lawrence in a game before we played Jacksonville, and the whole defense was all fired up. They loved it. So, you know, it's fun giving him some rookie trouble along the way, jokes like that. But he's a lot of fun to have.
Another rookie in there, and he seems like, by the way, just seems like a nice personality, like just in all way, a pretty positive guy, Tommy Togiai.
Yeah, really good guy. Wants to work. And, you know, a little bit shy, so it's funny. Malik Jackson makes him tell a joke in front of the D-line when meetings get slow at nighttime sometimes, but he's a pleasure to coach.
Marvin Wilson is a guy that if you looked at the early 2021 mock drafts was a first-rounder, projected first-rounder, a lot of them. We picked him up. I remember after that draft how excited Joe Woods was. I know you were excited about him. What has he showed you out here? Because he's got passes the eye test, certainly. When you look at him, you go, okay, that looks like a player.
Absolutely. First thing you see is size. And, you say that's what they look like, NFL defense tackles. So, he's continuing to work. He had some injury history there in college that, he's got to work through. But the guy is the same dude every day when he comes to work. He has a alpha male attitude of wanting to get better, wanting to get to the quarterback, wanting to make this team. Like, his mindset is what makes guys, end up earning their spot. And that's what you love to see with him. So as he continues to put it together, it'll be fun to watch.
How important is that mindset? You talked about it with a guy like Sheldon, for example. You just mentioned it with Marvin Wilson. Everybody at this level's good. Everybody at this level's big and strong, especially in your room, right? Is it the mindset and that extra kind of desire and that work ethic? Is that what separates guys ultimately?
Absolutely. You said it. Everybody has talent. So what separates the talent? It has to go to work ethic. It has to go to, taking care of your body, nutrition, sleep, recovery, all that stuff. It's all about being a pro. So anybody that can gain an edge like that, and I always come back to Porter because he'll spend 10 hours of his off day up here just working on himself, working on his betterment as a player. So that's where a lot of these guys in this league gain an edge and find a way to make a living for themselves.
All right, the last guy in your defensive tackle, we want to talk about Malik McDowell. Missed a little bit of time with that injury. He's back now, probably a big week for him, but he's a guy that on paper you could say might be the most just purely talented guy in your room, and yet we know he's had off-the-field issues, has never played a snap in the NFL. But, boy, when he walks out, I was thinking when you mentioned Malik Jackson, Calais Campbell, he looks like Calais Campbell to me. He just is a bigger human being than you're used to seeing. How's he doing, and what can he be?
Well, first of all, he had a really good first week here, first week of work, and he was looking the part, and then he had a little setback, so it's been kind of slow for him the last week or so. And he's really anxious to get back out there. Hopefully he can go against the Giants and get some really good work in because he does have all the tools. He's got size, athleticism. When he puts it together, it looks really good out there. So, again, everybody we've talked about, a lot of competition in that room. These guys all bring out the best in each other. It's a lot of fun to go through right now.
How important are these joint practices? What do you as a coach, what are you able to get from these that you aren't able to get from a normal training camp practice?
There's just that extra edge. There's that extra edge in one-on-one pass rush, of going a little bit past the whistle. There's that extra edge in team run of really finding out if you can set the edge on offense tackle instead of taking it a little bit easy on Jack just because you guys are teammates. All those things go into it. So, it'll definitely feel real out here when we get going against those guys.
Coach, very excited to see that with your group. And then, of course, on Sunday, First Center Stadium, the return. You hadn't been in front of a full house there. And I don't know if it'll be full for the preseason opener. You'd hope so, but
30
weeks after that, the home opener. Going to be pretty wild. How excited are you to be back in front of the fans and to even have had them out here at the Cross Country Mortgage campus?
Yeah, these fans are unbelievable. And I remember last year, I think it was 6,000 fans at one of our first games. And when they did let fans in, and just how loud it was for 6,000 people in the stadium is unbelievable. So I know my family's excited to get out there and tailgate. We're excited to get them in the stadium. And I can't wait till in season we get those guys on third down, everybody stand on their feet and see what this pass rush can do with those guys behind them.
It's going to be fun, Coach. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
You're up.
Love to hear that. And
Yeah.
listen, you want a comprehensive breakdown of the D-line room? You got it right there from the man who knows them better than anybody, defensive line coach Chris Kiffin. I got to get him this picture of Malik Jackson, which I'm going to make sure that I do from Jacksonville because that orange headscarf he was wearing was just it was tremendous. He possessed something that the French call an I don't know what in that outfit there, Jim. But I love it. He's got to get the family tailgating, get the place rocking. And boy, this is a pass rush he thinks certainly could benefit from having a crowd behind him.
Well, they will, and they have in the past when they've been there, and then when they've been able to do it. I will say this: that was really interesting. That was fun that they played the sack that Tommy Togiai had against Trevor Lawrence when he was at Ohio State for the entire defensive room. That's really neat stuff. That makes a kid feel very welcome.
It does, and he said the room was going nuts, and so hopefully we'll get some more of those type of things from Tommy Togiai. The Browns now getting ready to get this practice underway. Gibbe was telling us earlier on the bike today you had Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward was on the bike, JoJo Natson, Chris Hubbard, Tony Fields, you mentioned.
Michael Dunn.
And Michael Dunn. So that's the one surprise there. Dunn, who has played so very, very well. So let's see who slides up with that second team today at the guard position. Will it be Colby Gossett, or will it be Drew Forbes?
Drew Forbes, yeah.
Who's played
Colby
very
Gossett,
well.
Sure.
Yeah, those are the guys that have a chance to move up. The Browns starting their team period here. With a little run to Nick Chubb. He's running right
to his cereal.
He wants the Chubb Crunch. Listen, we'll be happy to share. Actually, I don't want to speak for Jim. Jim might not be happy to share the Chubb Crunch, but I think you would make an exception for the man himself.
God, I'd make a buffet for him.
All right, we'll be back. So much more to come. Wrapping it up here on Cleveland Browns Daily.
We're ready.
Yep. Be sure to catch the second edition of the Browns Preview Show happening tonight at 7 p.m. on the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns Radio Network. Browns fullback Johnny Stanton and the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, join Ken Carman and Gerard Cherry on the show tonight. The Browns going through some team drills. I got some updates for you. Number one.
Look at our guy, Davion Davis there.
A nice catch.
Wow.
Jordan Franks right down the middle saying, throw me the ball in case nobody's covered. They forgot to cover me on that one. But we're seeing Anthony Schwartz in team drills for the first time, and he flies. We saw him run a vertical where he got behind the defense and then a nice little comeback. But A.J. Green made a great play on the ball to get the PBU on that one. One note, we told you Michael Dunn was not out there earlier today, and working now as that second-team left guard with Dunn out has been Drew Forbes. Blake Hance at the right guard, Drew Forbes at the left guard for the Browns with the second team there on the offensive line as they go through and get some more work. Kyle Lauletta, Blake Hance getting a little bit of work as the third-team center today, as well as they keep trying to cross-train these guys on the interior of that line and create value. And for Hance, if you can be a guard and a center, that creates value. Dunn has done a little bit of that as well, Jim.
Hey, on the preview show, you mentioned Johnny Stanton. What a night Johnny Stanton
fun. Yeah.
the other night. And he had his family back, around after the game. But what a terrific guy.
Great story.
A great story.
I mean, he goes to Nebraska to be the quarterback there, doesn't play, transfers to Saddleback College, a little community college in Mission Viejo, California. Ooh, Schwartz leaking out. His speed is, when you see it, it does look different than other people. But back to Stanton. He goes there, and at that school, he throws for 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, leads the team in rushing over 700 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground, goes to UNLV, plays quarterback, gets hurt, and ends up playing fullback, tight end, some defense, special teams, and some quarterback.
Unbelievable.
But what stood out to me more than anything watching that was that Johnny Stanton didn't just play fullback against Jags. He played tailback.
He played tailback, right, yeah.
And there's something to that guy. And, again, you can trace a lot of the guys who say, I haven't heard of that guy before. Probably was on a practice squad in Minnesota at one point with Kevin Stefanski, and then they make their way here, and Stanton, no exception to that.
I thought he was great. I thought that was a great performance. Good for him.
I like him. Good kid. He actually sat right behind me on the bus back to the hotel and got to talk about him, and people were sending him highlights because I'm sure you were effusive in your praise on the radio broadcast. We were on TV.
I mean, if he had a cereal, I'd have a box right now.
I would have bought it for you. You're darn right you would have. And the funny thing was, I think on the Jags broadcast, they were calling him Johnny Staley. So he was laughing. Some of his family members sent him some clips of John Staley's performance in that one. Going through some punt block drills there with the crash pad. Always fun to see. The next level is next. Again, the preview show tonight at 7, and Browns Live coming your way in just a couple of minutes, 3 o'clock, with all the action here from the Cross Country Mortgage Campus. For Gibbe, for the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, I'm Nathan Zegura saying thanks for listening to Cleveland Browns Daily.